A CFO is more in tune with the day-to-day forecasting, whereas an outside CPA may be doing forecasting for next year.
You're listening to the best doggone money advice with John Neal and Tucker, the rescue dog.
All right, John, welcome back to the podcast. I wanted to talk a little bit today about fractional CFOs, what they do. We had already talked about this in a previous episode, but I wanted to dig a little deeper about what a fractional CFO actually does on the day-to-day or month-to-month during the year. And so if you could, can you explain to me, for people who don't understand what a fractional CFO is, if you could just go into that, and then after you do that, if you could tell me what it looks like to start working with a CFO.
Sure. Well, a fractional CFO is basically a part-time CFO for a business, and CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer. So they are, in essence, responsible for the financial well-being of the business, and typically are at a little higher level of competency, experience. They don't necessarily do the day-to-day things like write checks or reconcile bank accounts, but they plan the cash forecasting, look at potential bank financing, mergers, acquisitions, and give advice to the other business owners so that the business can grow profitably.
Right. And that's the way I understood it too. So when somebody might be listening to this and they might be thinking, I don't know if I can afford a CFO, which is why we're talking about the fractional CFO model. I don't know what your pricing is, and I don't think we should really talk about that on a podcast. But if you can get an idea, or if you can give the listeners an idea of what to expect to pay a fractional CFO, or how they're set up, right? So say I'm a business and I think that I've got some room for growth. I've got a CPA, and maybe I'm looking at you to be a fractional CFO to help me grow. What are some of the things that you would look at to help me come to the decision if I need one or not?
Well, first, let me start off. Full-time CFOs probably go for a minimum of $120,000 a year plus benefits. So, if you're big enough that you need somebody full-time, that's what you can expect to pay. For a fractional CFO, such as myself, when we talk to a business owner, we're looking at, how they are currently structured, where they are financially, where they are employee-wise, skill-wise, how many years have they been in business? What are they trying to accomplish? And then we can establish a proposal that will deal with what they're looking to have help with, and probably point out a few things that they may not have realized that they should have help with.
Right. For example, I would think that one of the roles of a CFO is to help prepare for like unexpected financial, crisis or unexpected emergencies, with their cash flow. And so if you're a CPA, you're reporting what happened, but as a CFO, you are forecasting what can happen and maybe point the direction in the way that business can move to avoid some of these economic uncertain times.
Right. I prefer to refer to all of those as issues. Some may be good, some may be bad. And a good CFO will be able to help plan so that those issues are kind of nipped in the bud. You'll have decent cash flow forecasting. You'll have decent procedures so that way ahead of time how the business is doing.
Let's dive into like a real world example of maybe some strategies that you've used with some of your past clients as a CFO or as a fractional CFO. Some of the strategies that maybe you've helped businesses develop their financial resiliency.
I think one of the things that we do with a lot of our clients in a CFO capacity is look at their inflow, managing their receivables and sales process so that they aren't taking on a bunch of customers or clients that are slow in paying, setting their terms for collection so that, again, they aren't paying for everything up front and then waiting 90 days to get paid. So, and then on the other side, managing accounts payable, taking care of vendor relations, making sure that if anybody gives cash discounts, that you're able to take advantage of them. So that saves you some money. So it's setting up the procedures on the front end so that everything runs smoothly through the back end.
So as a business owner, you might not know what softwares to use. So as a fractional CFO, are you coming in and also introducing these systems that you're talking about where, they might have accounting, they might be using QuickBooks or they might be using Wave or, something like that, but they're not really doing there's no forecasting software implemented because they don't have a CFO. So is that part of the services that you do, kind of help them with the infrastructure on how to manage the money?
Yes. I remember one of our clients in the construction industry, his brother-in-law was using an industry-specific type of software because it was the software to use. And my client was using QuickBooks. We met a few times, and we would have all these reports, and Bob would go, "Where did you get that report?" And I'd be like, "QuickBooks." "Well, where'd you get this report?" And I'm like, "QuickBooks." So, you may have good software, but you may not know how to use it. You may not know all the features of it.
I see. So the software they're using, it may very well work in a CFO scenario, that along with some spreadsheets and things like that. Have you found that there really doesn't need to be fancy software if you set up, like, you have very specific things that need to be tracked? Is it just as easy to go into Google Sheets or Excel, create your own, flow? And then, so how often are you working then with these clients? Again, these clients are generally, the reason why they're going the fractional CFO method is because A, there's not enough work, and B, it's more affordable. They're able to get this type of work done where they might not have been able to afford so earlier, right?
Yeah, I think initially the time involvement may be very intensive because you're learning their system, you're learning their software, you're learning how you guys mesh together.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you understand what they're trying to accomplish, you develop the systems and procedures, and you may be able to back off. We've had clients where we meet weekly. We've had clients where we meet once a month.
What's a typical client look like? Would a franchise or mom and pop HVAC store, would they benefit if they were large enough? If they had, maybe, let's say they have 25 employees, they've got 6 or 7 trucks that are out there. Is that somebody that would be in the fractional CFO realm?
Yeah, quite possibly they could. We've got an HVAC client that does about $6 million in revenue annually, has a fleet of probably a dozen service vehicles, and we meet with them on a regular basis, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, depending on the month, and just go through things. We don't have to, explain everything, but there's a couple things that we're checking, and hey, what happened here? End of the year, beginning of the year, why is inventory where it is? And it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It could be good.
Yeah, at that point, it's just information that you're analyzing. You're taking a look at and saying, okay, what is this? Now, how do we move forward with that? So that kind of moves me into my next question about forecasting. And I kind of get this confused with what a CPA does and what a CFO would do. So what's the differences between forecasting when you have your CFO hat on versus when you have your CPA hat on? Or is there a difference?
I don't know that there's necessarily a difference. I think a CFO is more in tune with the day-to-day forecasting, whereas an outside CPA may be doing forecasting for next year, let's say. And a CFO where a fractional CFO would be adjusting those forecasts based on current conditions.
Let's talk about, this is the meat of the issue right here. I think that the value of having a CFO is the fact that we can head off financial situations before they happen. And so over the years that you've been doing this, can you kind of give me just an example of a scenario where somebody was heading down the wrong path, but because you had your microscope on the business, you were able to turn it around and basically avoid disaster? Is there something that you can share with that?
Yeah. We had a manufacturing client that the owner was doing everything himself. He had some office help, but he was basically wearing the, CEO, COO, CFO, CMO, CIO, and it just got to be overwhelming. So we worked with him for a little while to again get an understanding of the business and what needed to be done. And then we were able to go out and find some investors to help, to better manage the cash flow swings, and to find some people to help so that he wasn't wearing all the hats. And we kept the CFO role, and found somebody who could do the marketing, somebody who had some operational background that could run the plant, and let him do more of the higher level stuff than checking the UPS for shipping and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That I think by taking somebody else on, like a fractional CFO, obviously you're going to have a personal relationship with that business owner or the CEO, right? And so as you have these conversations, obviously their strategy might go beyond just numbers and spreadsheets. It might be talking about, hey, this is how I can help you move forward with this, whatever it is. Like the example you gave was, to find some marketing help or to find this other help, which you kind of helped implement during that time period. So when you're working with a business, I have one bonus question for you. Like, what are you doing in the background? You say you might meet somebody quarterly. It might be 2 or 3 times a month, right? So in the background, what can a business expect that their fractional CFO is conducting?
Well, in the background, we're still looking at the numbers, if you will, making sure that procedures are being followed. And if we spot something, we aren't going to wait. If I spot something today, I'm not going to wait until the end of the quarter and go, hey, Jason, back in 6 weeks ago, we saw this happening, and now it's exploded into something that is unmanageable.
Right. Yeah. And I waited till we had a meeting scheduled for 6 weeks. And so here it is 6 weeks later. So here I am telling you that right now. Yeah. So you're essentially a fractional CFO is a CFO. He is in the business. He's just not, he's not a full-time CFO. I would say a fractional CFO is basically a part-time CFO that is an independent contractor. Is that the best way to, I guess, define what a fractional CFO is?
Yeah. And he can be a CFO for, many different businesses. Sometimes business owners get a little skeptical because whatever, I'm a CFO for HVAC companies. So HVAC company 1 is going to get all the information that I know about HVAC company number 2 and steal their customers and stuff like that. And that just doesn't happen.
So what's the best advice you can give somebody who is, I guess, in a position to consider having a CFO, whether they hire you or they hire somebody else? What are some of the criteria that you would suggest that they look at?
One of the criterion is just to have somebody who knows your industry, not necessarily inside and out, but knows the difference between a furnace and an air conditioner and whatnot. Experience is good. You don't want somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of experience. And then chemistry. Do you guys get along? You don't necessarily have to both hunt and fish or like Chaucer, but you should be able to get along together and make sure that I guess trust may be too hard of a term, but you can rely on the CFO to make good suggestions and then be willing to follow.
Are there any kind of sites that, like, if I'm shopping for a doctor, for example, there are sites that I can go to that show, I guess, reviews or the public opinion of that. Is there such a thing for CFOs and CPAs?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you can always Google, John Neal CPA and see what people say about him. See if he belongs to any organizations that would be good to belong to, that type of thing. But I don't think there's a CFOforhire.com. I may be wrong.
Nothing that you've seen or nothing that you actually use or seen yourself, right?
Right. I think as you grow, you may outgrow a bookkeeper type position and need somebody with a higher level of knowledge and experience to help your business grow profitably. You may not be able to afford a full-time CFO, and there's nothing wrong with that. And fractional CFOs are should be a very integral part of growing your business, making sure that things are functioning smoothly, being able to have the systems and procedures so that you can forecast cash flow and growth and profitability and resulting in less stress for you, the business owner.